Imagine this. You and your spouse have been together for years. You've built a life together, shared meals, shared dreams, shared everything. You filed your immigration paperwork, you waited months, and finally the letter arrives. The interview date is set. And then a little bit of panic because you realize you have no idea what's about to happen inside that room in immigration. What are they going to ask? What if you and your spouse answer differently? What if you forget something? What if they think your marriage isn't real? Here's what most people don't know. The marriage interview is one of the most misunderstood and most feared. It's one of those steps that's very important in the immigration process. I've seen couples who have been happily married for 10 years walk into the interview completely unprepared and walk out devastated. And then I've seen other couples, nervous, even scared, walk in fully prepared and walk out with their green card. The difference between those two outcomes, preparation. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. Stay with me because what I'm about to share could save your case. This is very important for your case. My name is Carlene Pananzi. I'm an immigration attorney, and I've been practicing immigration law for 35 years. Over the course of my career, I've helped hundreds of couples navigate the immigration system, including the marriage interview. I've sat across the table from clients who were terrified. I've walked into the USCIS offices along families who didn't know what to expect, and I've helped people rebuild their cases when things go wrong. So when I say I know the process, I know the process. I know it inside and out. In the next few minutes, I'm going to give you a step-by-step breakdown of exactly how to prepare for your marriage interview, what to bring, what to expect, and what questions that the immigration officer will probably ask you. And the mistakes that, you can happen and you can really get your case denied. Stay with me all the way to the end because at the end, I'm going to share with you something that's very important. And it's a common mistake that couples make that they don't see coming. And it could cost you everything if you don't know anything about it. If you're watching us live or you're watching a replay, subscribe to us. We go live quite often, and we want to be live and be here on this channel to help you with your questions and topics about immigration that could help your case, help you to avoid a lot of stress, and even help you to win your case. So, what exactly is this marriage interview and why does it even exist? Why do we even need a marriage interview? So, let's start from the beginning. When a US citizen or lawful permanent resident uh, who's in the United States, they get married to a person, their foreign born spouse, and they get married and they file the paperwork for the spouse to get a green card. The government wants to make sure that the marriage is real. And that's it. That's the whole point of the interview. The officer from USCIS, from Immigration, US Citizenship and Immigration Services, will sit down with you and your spouse and ask you questions about your life together. They want to see that you're a real couple, not two people who just got together to get the residence, to get a visa. Here's what most people don't realize. The officer is not trying to trick you. They're trying to verify that your marriage is a good marriage, that it's real, that it's legal, and that it's genuine. But here's the thing, an unprepared couple can look suspicious even when their marriage is completely real. And that's what we need to protect against today. So, step number one is gather your documents. The first thing you need to do weeks before your interview, get your documents together. The officer will review what you bring, and then you will review everything with you. Now, the second thing that I want you to do is think about the documents that you need to bring. Your original marriage certificate, not a copy, joint financial documents, a bank account, uh, taxes together, evidence that you live together, a lease in both your names, photos, real candid photos of different years, holidays, vacations, not just post wedding photos, correspondence, texts that you send to each other, cards that you send to each other, and even letters from people who know you as a couple, and government issued IDs and passports. The next part is where people get into trouble. They wait until the week before the interview to pull everything together. Try to get everything done, way ahead of time. Prepare for it. Start building your case way before. Start today. Think of the documents as telling a story about your marriage, telling stories about your life together. And it's very important. One story that I remember um, years ago, I had a couple who came to me after their interview. The interview just didn't go well at all. And they had been married for many years. They had a child together, they had a house together, they had a dog together. And it was a real marriage, completely real. But when they sat down to the interview in the room with the officer started to ask them questions like, what side of the bed does your spouse sleep on? What did you have dinner for last week? What is the name of your mother-in-law? The husband and wife were sitting in separate rooms, which, by the way, immigration does sometimes, but they gave different answers. It wasn't because they were lying. It was just that they didn't think about those details. They didn't think about it at all. And no one told them that they had to. So it's very important that you remember that these things can happen and you need to make sure that your questions match. It's not just the papers, you have to be able to tell your story. So in the end, we were able to help the family, but they went through so much stress. And I don't want this to happen to you. Step number 2 is practice the questions they will ask you. Let me give you the most common questions that an immigration officer can ask you at an interview. Sit down with your spouse and practice answering these questions together. And try to, or even have somebody question you, do it separately and make sure your answers are consistent. For example, when did you and your spouse first meet? When did you get engaged? How did the proposal happen? Describe the wedding day. Who attended? Where was it? Where do you live now? Describe your home. Who does the cooking? Who cleans? What is the daily routine together? What side of the bed does each of you sleep on? What are your spouse's hobbies and interests? What are the names of your spouse's siblings, the parents, the close friends? Where does your spouse work? What is the schedule? Where have you met each other's families? What is a typical family gathering like? What did you do your last anniversary? What did you do for Valentine's Day? What did you do last Christmas? What did you do last birthday? So stay with me, okay? Because I'm going to help you to remember the steps. And what you should do is do a mock interview. One of you can play the officer. You can ask the questions and make sure the answers are correct. And if the answers don't match, don't panic. Just talk it through again and again. The goal is not to memorize these scripted answers. The goal is to know your life enough to be able to speak about it as a story. Step number 3 is know what to expect on the interview day. Okay? So let me walk through with you what will happen. You will arrive at USCIS at the local office. You'll check in. You may have to wait a little bit. The officer will call you in, and both of you will be in the room together. And then the officer will start to begin to ask you questions. The interview will be about 30 minutes, sometimes less. And then the officer will ask you to take an oath. Every word matters. The officer is trained to watch your body language just as much as they listen to your words. Nervousness is normal and expected, but don't fidget, don't avoid eye contact. Look straight at the officer and answer correctly. So arrive early, never be late for a USCIS appointment. Dress professionally. So if you're going, as if you're going to an interview or to the church, bring your documents organized in a folder. Don't show up with a grocery bag full of papers that are flying all over the place. Answer what is asked. Do not over explain. Short, direct, truthful answers are the best. If you do not understand a question, it's okay. Just ask the officer to repeat it. Don't guess. And if you do not know an answer, say so. Do not make something up. Honesty is always the best. Number 4, and this is a big mistake that couples make, and this is something I want you to think about. Okay? I told you at the beginning that it's a mistake that couples make, and sometimes they don't even see it coming. Sometimes the biggest mistakes is not even just that the answers are inconsistent or that they're missing documents. Sometimes the biggest mistakes that couples make is going to the interview without speaking to an attorney first. Sometimes, okay, you may not want to bring an attorney with you to the interview, but at least review with the attorney before you go to the interview. Review, you know, the documents and review the questions and review all these things before you go. Sometimes, if the officer doesn't understand the marriage or he has doubts, he's going to issue what's called a request for evidence or a notice of intent to deny. If those two documents arrive at your home, Don't just go on Google to get a response. Don't do that. What you need to do is to answer every question that the request for evidence is challenging. Respond on time and try to submit more evidence than the officers requested. Be prepared. Talk to talk to an attorney before, talk to your family members, try to get more affidavits, try to get more documents, and make sure you submit the request for evidence on time. Don't do it a day later. Make sure you do it on time. So, we talked about building a strong evidence for your file, bringing documents, bringing photos, practicing for the interview, know what to expect on the interview day, and understand what your rights are. Try not to face this alone. There are attorneys out there who will help you and guide you and protect you. So if you're preparing for a marriage interview and you want personalized guidance, not just general advice, someone who will look at your case, review your family history, review your specific case, we can help you. You don't have to figure this out on your own, okay? We can help you anytime you want. If you have questions, send them to us and we will help you to answer those questions. If you have a request for evidence letter that arrived, we can help you to answer that request for evidence. You don't have to do this alone. Send us an email. We can help you.